Greetings, ghosts and ghouls, and welcome back to Bad Boo, a podcast conjured for the curious where we explore all things frights, flicks, and folklore.
We are your haunting hosts, Sam and Jodie, guiding you through every episode of occult exploration and holding your hand the whole way through.
So, if you like the sound of spooks, screams, and symphonies, then keep listening as we unravel our mystic matter for this week.
In today's episode, we'll be exploring the uncanny origins of doppelgängers and the theory of the other, with its interlinked history to ourselves.
Oh.
Yes, we are back. I know we had a little week's break from our weekly uploads, but we've had some exciting things happening in our personal lives, so we've just having to be adjusting to a different, newer way of living schedule-wise, but we are back and ready to bring you more frights, flicks, and folklore.
Yes, sir. And what a better start to our little comeback than an episode about one of the most creepy topics, I would say, of doppelgängers, the theory of the other, you not being as special as you think you are.
No, sorry to you narcissists out there, you are not as special as you think you are, because there is someone just like you, and it's certainly quite the creepy topic, but
it is. As
we always do with every episode and starting our Mystic Matter section, what are doppelgängers?
Well, in modern terms, doppelgängers are the phenomenon of basically a living double. So this is a person who is a near perfect visual match for somebody else without being biologically related to them.
Interesting.
Very much so. And for most doppelgängers, while the face is incredibly diverse, there is basically a finite number of genes that control facial features. So this is why when it gets to the subject of doppelgängers and people looking really, really freaking similar, research suggests that with the population being over 8 billion people on the earth at the moment, the mathematical likelihood is that there is at least 7 people in the world who look almost exactly like you.
I can't even bear that idea. Sorry to those other 7 people.
I mean, I can only put up with one of you, let alone 7.
There you go. That's the first little dig of the episode.
I'm joking. I'm worse. Could you imagine 7 of me? 6 or 7?
No. Oh, dearie me.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. No, I can't, because otherwise it wouldn't. Probably the other 7 people probably wouldn't do Bad Boo, would they? Let's face it.
No, they wouldn't.
Let's face it. We've hit the lucky versions.
We have, and they're never truly the same.
No.
Or are they?
Well, this is what we will find out, hopefully, in this episode. And
just going back to the topic very quickly, in the age of digital surveillance and facial recognition, doppelgangers have actually moved from mystery into data. And this is because software often struggles to differentiate between statistical doubles, which leads to things like identity glitches and crossovers between people, because it's basically causing 2 strangers to be flagged as the same person by security systems.
Yep, I mean that we've heard cases and probably seen, everybody listening probably has seen as well, cases of people that have been misunderstood to have committed a crime because they look exactly identical to someone else who actually did commit the crime, you know.
I'm pretty sure that I've seen murders or people been arrested or put in prison because they look exactly like somebody that has actually killed someone.
Yeah.
And then they just haven't been able to find the real person, and this person looks so much like them.
Yeah.
And people's fingerprints are almost sometimes the exact same.
Yes.
So it's it is really, really scary.
It is quite creepy for sure.
And with that, geneticists have actually found that lookalike strangers share more than just the same face. They frequently share the same heights, weights, or even habits like smoking or education levels, for example, suggesting that our DNA actually does influence our physical and behavioural vibe more than we had previously realised.
Obviously, there's environmental factors that also come into play. And,
nature or nurture, things like that.
Yeah, life experiences. But interesting in regard to DNA, in how it can, even linked to just habits and behaviours, weights, heights, that you are very similar in many aspects, even down to just what you do with your time.
And there's also something called hutoscopy, which is basically a neurological state where an individual perceives a version of themselves in their peripheral vision or either directly in front of them. And it's caused by a disruption in the... Bear with me on this word because it's a big word. And what's the little Elmo thing? Where he's like, that's a big word for Elmo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I don't think I've heard Elmo
I can't
say
remember what
this
it is.
one,
But
I'm
anyway,
not bringing out my Elmo impression because it definitely will, but...
It will, but it's really, really good. Trust me, Sam's Elmo impression is elite.
Yeah.
Anyway, this particular phenomenon, known as the psychological glitch, is actually caused by a disruption in the temporoparietal, there we go, fuck, I messed it up the last time.
Just, you guys get it.
Yeah.
You'll get it.
TEMPOROPARIETAL junction. And basically, in layman's terms...
It's not a train junction.
It's not, I'm afraid. But in layman's terms, it's the part of the brain that integrates the sense of self that a human being has with the physical location of their body within space.
Interesting again. So again, we touched on like some psychological things in previous episodes in terms of like, how the brain can, be the influence of things, and this being one of them, like a glitch in your brain is kind of, that's kind of freaky. I mean, obviously I've never experienced that. I think it's kind of probably quite rare, I reckon, but I don't know. But disturbing nonetheless.
It is disturbing. And one of the other explanations, which is even more disturbing in my personal opinion, is the actual quote-unquote shadow presence, which beyond the visual, many people who do have experiences with doppelgangers or mimics or others actually describe them as like just a sense of being followed, and this is often linked to the Fregoli delusion, which is a rare condition where a person believes that different people are actually a singular person in disguise, often their own double.
Yeah, that's quite creepy.
That's mad.
Imagine going about and thinking that everyone you see is kind of yourself. But
I know. I mean, a bit self-centered, but at the same time, if it's actually something that you're suffering from, I feel so sorry for you. That is terrifying.
That is terrifying.
Like, imagine
really
you
bad.
chasing... Like, imagine if someone's running for a bus behind you, and they're about to run past, but you think that it's you running towards you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's like...
I wouldn't be able to...
That's like Matrix, Inception type stuff right there.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be able to handle that.
No, I wouldn't either.
But now we kind of have a general gist of what a doppelganger is in sort of the most plain terms here. What are the origins? So, there's many different avenues of where the doppelgangers actually come from. They're a fascinating sort of mixture of ancient sort of soul concepts and folk superstitions and 18th century romantic literature as well. And obviously we use the word quite casually today, but really its roots are deeply tied to the shadow self. So first of all, we have the double walker, and the word of the doppelganger actually comes from Germany. And if you break it down, doppel means double, ganger means goer or walker, so like a double walker or a double goer type person. And the term was officially coined in 1796 by the German author
Jean Paul, or Johann Paul Friedrich Richter, in his novel Siebenkas. So sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. My German sucks. But in the book, essentially, he used it to describe people who see themselves, though he originally used the spelling doppelgänger. So, there's a little kind of original... That's where the word sort of comes from. It is where the word comes from, but as we just said a second ago, the idea of the doppelganger does come from the concept of the shadow self, which actually derives from a lot of different cultures all around the world. The most prominent one being the belief of the Ka in ancient Egypt, which actually translates to a spiritual twin. So they believed that every single person was born with a Ka, so a spiritual twin, and it lived on after the death of that person, which is why they mummified bodies in order to give the Ka a home in the afterlife.
And car being K-A. I'm not talking about the car as in the vehicle.
Yeah.
Because obviously there are many doppelgangers of a car because they all look the same.
Yeah.
But this is the car with a K. It's not. There's a Ford KA,
Ka?
isn't there? Or Ka.
Ka?
But I think it's pronounced car. I
Yeah,
believe
I'd assume
so.
Maybe it's just the accent coming through. So
Perhaps.
sorry for that. But moving on, we then have the Norse mythology of the Vardoga or the Vardoja. Not quite sure what one it is, but this is a premonitory double. So basically, it's a spirit that performs a person's actions just before they arrive somewhere. So witnesses might hear the front door open or footsteps in the hallway, only for the actual person to only arrive about 20 minutes later.
So it's kind of like, premonition
Yeah,
of what's to come.
exactly.
But it happens a little bit of time before, which is quite strange.
Kind of like a physical deja vu.
It is kind of a deja vu that you hear, so it's
Yeah.
almost supernatural,
It is,
isn't it?
Exactly.
It's kind of like a foreshadow.
Yep, and then heading back over on home, we have the British and Irish folklore, which is known as the fetch. So in Ireland and particularly Scotland as well, a fetch is the supernatural double of a person. So if you saw a fetch in the morning, it was a sign of a long life ahead of you. However, if you saw it at night time, it was a strict omen of your impending death.
Yes, we've seen sort of things again in some of our episodes. We talked about like omens and strange sort of things that if you see it and kind of like it's warning signs of stuff, and this kind of seems like one here. Again, it's a very very creepy episode, isn't it?
It is
so
very
far?
very creepy.
So hope you guys are hanging on tight there, because this is going to get even more creepy as we get into it.
This is just the start. We're only scratching the surface.
Indeed. So as we spoke about earlier as well, there was the Romantic era, so like in terms of literature. So during the late 1700s and the 1800s, the concept shifted from a spirit soul to something much more sinister and psychological. So you had like the harbinger of doom. So in German folklore, seeing your own doppelganger was a death omen, and it was believed that doppelgangers cast no shadow and had no reflection in mirrors. It's almost like a vampire in some regards.
That is actually, it's quite close to a vampire,
it's
isn't
very
it?
similar, yeah. And also you had the shadow self, in where like writers like E.T.A. Hoffman and Edgar Allan Poe began using the double to represent the dark half of a person's personality. So ideas like the repressed urges and evil thoughts that like a real person would essentially try and hide.
That's where we get like the Jekyll and Hyde ideas
exactly.
from.
It's kind of you can see the influences and many other things of kind of like a repressed inner sort of animalistic evil side, if you like.
And I think even with literature like Frankenstein, where it's actually like the doctor that's evil, it's like Dr. Frankenstein versus this beast that he's created.
And the monster is kind of a result
who is
of
also
that.
Frankenstein, but they're also just showing like the nature of the doctor ends up being like the true version of evil, whereas the Frankenstein itself is meant to be an embodiment of the good that the doctor did have. So it's like, it's amazing how much comes from the Romantic era of literature.
It's
really
a great era for influence.
100%. And going off of that, there are a few famous instances of doppelgangers, which we're just going to glance over for you. So history is actually surprisingly full of high-profile figures who have claimed to have encountered their own double walker. These instances often have involved a mix of political omens, literary hauntings, and inexplicable physical sightings. The first of which belongs to a Mr. Abraham Lincoln in his mirror in 1860.
What is Abe doing?
No idea.
I've actually heard about this one.
Have you?
Yeah.
Really?
About his mirror, yeah.
Oh, okay. This is one of the most famous political doppelganger stories that's ever occurred, and basically it happened just after he had first been elected. So while he was resting on a sofa, he looked into a bureau mirror and saw a double reflection of himself. One of his faces was his normal self, but the other one was incredibly pale and almost ghostly. He tried to show his wife, who was Mary Todd Lincoln, but the image vanished as soon as he stood up, and Mary was really deeply disturbed, interpreting the two faces as a sign that he would be elected 2 more terms, but the actual deathly face meant that he would not survive the second one.
I get that's creepy, because obviously he was assassinated Abraham Lincoln, but in America when he's the president. But the second term is kind of that death side of him, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
The second face that you saw almost was like a foreshadowing of who he was, or who he might become, and that he wouldn't survive those 2 terms, which is pretty creepy.
Yeah. And
imagine being like the president of the United States and you see that, you're like, oh,
I know, exactly.
Shit,
And if that is what his wife concurred from that experience, which does make sense, because obviously it's his face, his second face, representing the 2 terms that he is going to have.
Yeah.
The second one disappearing,
his demise,
and having that ghostly appearance.
Yeah.
The even creepier bit is that he did actually die 42 days into his second term as a president. So she was right.
So yeah, I mean, like that aspect of seeing that happen, like you said about his wife.
Yeah.
Kind of, when it did come true. I mean, that must have been terrifying.
Yeah.
Very supernatural.
It doesn't surprise me if
Very
people
supernatural.
start to probably call her like a witch and stuff, obviously because of the timing and of everything.
Yeah.
If she's gone and made that assumption, then
there's like
it's
correlations
actually happened. Yeah, then there's correlations, of course.
to like the original sort of witchcraft sort
But
of.
also, it must have been really upsetting, kind of having like a premonition of like your husband's death.
Yeah.
Like,
and it
I know
actually
that-
then does happen.
I know that all like political figures are like touchy of a subject.
Yeah.
Obviously, depending on political views of people
Yeah.
nowadays and the political state at the time.
Yeah.
But regardless, man and wife, and your wife predicting your death based on something that you've seen in a mirror, terrifying.
Yeah.
Because not only are you now afraid that you're going to die really very soon, but your wife is completely terrified that something's going to happen to you.
Yeah. Gonna lose her husband, and you're gonna like leave her behind. And
Exactly.
something, and it did to Abraham Lincoln.
It did indeed. But heading over to the other side of the world, a little bit earlier in fact, we then have an experience with Queen Elizabeth I in 1603.
The OG, if you like.
So as the quote-unquote Virgin Queen, near the end of her life, she reportedly experienced a terrifying encounter in her bedchamber. For those of you who don't know, bedchamber is basically a bedroom. During this encounter, she claimed that she had seen her own doppelganger lying motionless on her bed, and the double was described as pallid, shriveled, and ghastly. Deeply shaken by the omen, she refused to go back to bed, and she famously spent her final days sitting upright on cushions on the floor, fearing that if she lay down then she would never wake up. However, she died shortly afterwards.
It kind of all links to what you were saying earlier about the like premonition version of like these doppelgangers, and both of these so far very much seem like a premonition.
They do, exactly.
Of
It's like a warning.
that she's died.
Almost.
Abraham Lincoln, the premonition of his death in the second term of presidency. Terrible. Very, very freaky.
And just to go and make it that little bit more freakier, because this is Bad Boo and it's what we do.
That's right.
Actually, in the extreme physical decline that Queen Elizabeth was having at the time, because her health was really, really bad, she actually went on to stand up in her bedroom for 15 hours straight every single day. Obviously, if you're sick and you're old, then this is going to make it worse, right? So it did make it a lot worse. And basically, what happened was eventually one day she collapsed. But she didn't go and lie on her bed, but she did go and lie down on her floor, as her maids that she had covered her floor in cushions so that she would lie down and basically face a comfortable death. However, it was after she laid on here, there was 4 days that passed before her servants managed to get her into her bed, where she did pass away.
Blimey. It almost did foreshadow her actually being in her bed.
Yeah.
So it's a complete foreshadowing. Again.
Exactly.
That's kind of a premonition. She saw a premonition of her death. Freaky. Very freaky. And next on the famous instances, I suppose, is a Percy Bysshe Shelley in 1822, who is the romantic poet and was surrounded by tragedy and the supernatural. So weeks before he actually drowned in the sailing accident, he had several encounters with his double. Again, seems to be happening just before people die.
Yeah, again.
So while walking on the terrace in Italy, Shelley claimed his doppelganger approached him and asked, "How long do you mean to be content?" And also you had his friend Jane Williams, who also claimed to see Shelley walk past her window multiple times towards a dead-end path, even though the real Shelley was nowhere near the house at the time.
Ooh.
So again, it's kind of like before the death
Yeah.
appearances of like almost a premonition ghost almost appears around these people, which is freaky as well.
Yeah, and it's actually really devastating because he was only 29 when he passed away of drowning.
Blimey. That's young. That's very young.
It is very, very young. So again, a lot of doppelgangers in the 1800s by the sounds of it.
Yeah, what are they doing in that time?
Then for the last one, we have the infamous Catherine the Great in 1796. So she was the Empress of Russia, and she was allegedly alerted by her servants that, quote-unquote, she had entered the throne room while she was actually still in her private quarters. So Catherine then went to the throne room to investigate and found her identical double sitting calmly on her throne. In a show of her characteristic power, she ordered her guards to fire upon the doppelganger, and the apparition supposedly vanished into thin air the moments that the guns were actually levelled at it. Catherine then died of a stroke weeks later.
Again, the premonition.
Exactly.
How freaky is that? Like, all of these famous cases are all kind of like a bad omen sign of saying something's going to happen to you soon, and this is you type thing. It's almost like a sort of fear tactic.
It is.
It's very supernatural, like I say.
Yeah, but it's also really strange of like, you don't hear about kind of regular people having like these experiences of being shown their death, and
so these people
all
with
these types of
power, isn't
things.
it? Like immense power. That's that's another creepy one. So all four of these are very, very creepy, and there's many more, but we thought these are like the most famous ones that we'd pop in here of like famous political and sort of historical figures. Yeah. So again, that is kind of in a roundabout way doppelgangers and what they are, and they come in many forms.
They do.
One of which actually comes in a much more fantastical form, which we'll be talking about now in our Isle of Fright. So for this week's Isle of Fright, obviously doppelgangers are far and few between in the world. So we've kind of found something we've spoken about actually in our fairy tales episode, which was the idea of the changelings, which the Isle of Wight, obviously, if you know, is very much known for its supernatural elements.
It really is. The entire island sits on a ley line, which for those of you who don't know, they are believed to be energetical lines and maps across the entire globe. And the Isle of Wight is one of the only islands that actually sits directly on top of one.
Yep, and hence why there is a lot of folklore and supernatural, instances. But this time, this is something that's more generic, but it can link back to the Isle of Wight, so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about, is the changeling.
Yeah, and the idea of said creature. So in European and Isle of Wight folklore, a changeling, which historically is actually called an orf or an oaf, is actually a fairy child surreptitiously substituted for a human infant. So this myth was often used to explain children with misunderstood diseases or developmental disabilities. So if you ever heard the phrase like away with the fairies, or saying, oh yeah, sorry, I was away with the fairies, the entire idea was that when children were like misbehaving, or when they had complete moments of like blankness, or when people just weren't acting themselves, or they weren't behaving quote unquote normal, majority of the time it was people being neurodivergent, and they didn't know how to describe it at the time.
Yeah.
But they actually said that they were away with the fairies, and it was that person's or that child's like soul or body had been taken by fairies and changelings, and it was actually a changeling sitting in their place to be part of the human world.
Yeah, it's almost swapped out, which is, in the folklore, it's very, very creepy.
It is.
But in kind of like how it has been described before, it's, in terms of how they used to interpret like disabilities, obviously it's very sad in how like people, but they're trying to make sense of something they didn't understand, which is, that's kind of understandable at the time. But anyway, characteristics of these said changelings. are often described as quite sickly, and they're sort of failing to grow normally and possessing sort of wizened, wrinkled skin, almost like an old man. And they have like unusual features such as beards, long teeth, or abnormally large heads.
Ooh.
So kind of quite creepy there.
Mm-hmm.
You think about your kid being exchanged and he comes back with a beard.
Yeah.
It's kind of, hold on a minute. So, and also they're obviously known for insatiable hunger and constant crying, and they may show intelligence far beyond their years or perform strange acts when they're alone, such as dancing or playing musical instruments, probably to a very high standard.
Yeah, exactly. And some legends actually claim that they are elderly fairies brought to the human world to live out their final days in comfort, which is actually quite nice.
That's more of a less spooky version of what this changeling
stealing
story
children isn't agreeable anyway.
No, so regardless, they shouldn't be doing it, these
exactly.
fairies.
So just moving on to a little bit of kind of like how to identify a changeling and the quote-unquote cures that people had at the time. A common method to expose a changeling was to actually perform a nonsensical task. So for example, like brewing a meal in an eggshell. So this trick would trick the creature into speaking and revealing its true age, causing it to vanish.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's all about tricking and trying to sort of catch them out, almost again like the witches type thing. It's like trials and going through that element of like trying to, take away any sort of variables to pinpoint exactly, the creature they are type thing.
And on a more sinister note, we then have another folklore which actually suggested exposing the child to fire or boiling water to force the fairies to return the original human child back home.
Almost like a torture method.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that's, quite disturbing.
It is.
And violent.
It is very, very violent, especially for kids who were neurodivergent and weren't actually changelings.
Yeah.
That's really, really, really messed up.
It's kind of the same as the witches thing, isn't it? So
it
is completely messed up.
Yeah, just despicable.
Yeah.
But moving on from that, to actually protect people from changelings, families would use iron objects like scissors or horseshoes, as well as salt or even charms to ward off fairy kidnappers.
Do you reckon that's why people have like horseshoes on their door? I've just sort of thought about that.
We've got an iron horseshoe above the shed that's next to my house because it's like built in.
Right.
And like this is going to sound really, really posh. Like at the end of the driveway being about like 15 meters, by the way, it's not like a huge fancy thing, and we share it with our neighbors next door. But there's a small shed that's built into like kind of like an outhouse looking building, completely of bricks. But there's an iron horseshoe above the black door that's there.
Yeah.
And that's been there since, I think, just after the Second World War, maybe before that, because I'm originally from the outskirts of London. But
it's interesting that all these little things that you just kind of see as like normal, like the horseshoe, really like understanding what they were kind of for, and it's for these things like this.
So next time you go into a pub and there's a horseshoe, you know what it's for.
There is actually a pub on the Isle of Wight called the Horseshoe near Cowes, so that'd be interesting to see if there's any kind of weird history behind that.
It would be.
And obviously, in regards to like a more historical and local context, this includes like tales of like the folk or the good neighbours who dwelt under hills and were known to carry humans away from where they lived. And these are like places like Puckerster Cove, which is in Knighton, which is at the bottom of the Isle of Wight, are traditionally sort of associated with the changeling spirits. So the Isle of Wight does have a connection, particularly in the Knighton area, which is by Blackgang Chine, which we've spoken about a lot in our podcast, which is like a very, it's a theme park area, but also it's got a lot of history behind like ghosts and spirits and fairies and stuff. And Knighton is just next door. Pirates. But the Knighton is just next door to Blackgang.
It is indeed. So if you want to see us go to Knighton and go to the, Puckerster Cave.
Puckerster Cove, I believe, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Puckerster Cove. Ignore what I just said 2 seconds ago.
But there are caves by Blackgang.
Of course there are.
There's tons.
Then let us know in the comments below and we will go there.
Indeed.
But in the meantime, we've got a little story for you that we're going to dissect if we think this is a real encounter or not. So come with us into our Boo or Bust. welcome to the Boo or Bust section. As I said just a second ago, we do have a little story for you, obviously relating to today's topic of the doppelganger, and funnily enough, that's the exact name for this story. So coming from the No Sleep Reddit, we have the username of CombatWombat9853.
Sounds like a classic sort of gamer tag.
It does.
Like
Amazing name, by the way. Love a little wombat. They're so
Combat
cute.
Wombat.
Maybe they're Australian. Who knows?
Yeah,
or maybe they just really love wombats. Who knows? Anyway, this is the story of the doppelganger. I never truly had a problem with where we lived. It was a secluded area, but that also just meant privacy was easy to come by. It was a small county in eastern Tennessee that had maybe 100 houses or so. It was just me and my parents alone in the mountains. Mum had gotten used to the mountain life and never gave much thought to leaving. My dad worked as a country game warden and usually never got home until around 8 or 9 at night. I remembered one night though. He came home rather early. He always had keys to open the door and would typically come right in, grab something to eat, sit in his recliner, and then head straight to bed. But tonight he came in and silently sat at the table, not moving or eating. He just sat there with his head in his hands.
Something wrong, Dad? I asked him. He turned to look at me with a grim look of sadness crawling over his face. Oddly enough, it seemed to quickly contort to a look of concern now. Mike has been missing from the station for almost 2 days. Nobody has been able to track him down and his family is becoming restless. Just been hard to face a wife and kids who think they've just lost their husband and father. That's all, buddy, he told me, with an almost solemn tone to his voice. Mike was his partner for the past few years. He was a younger man, no more than maybe 30 years old. Mum came in and started having a conversation with Dad while I returned to the TV. Their voices both cracked from time to time. I presumed it was due to the gravity of the situation. About 10 minutes later, Dad returned to the living room with Mum, and they turned the TV off while I was watching it. Before I could protest, they looked at me and spoke. Son, until this all clears up, I want you to promise me a few things, okay? From now on, don't open the door to anybody. Me and your mother both have keys, and we can let ourselves in. He told me while I listened intently. We won't have a need to knock or call for you, and if you hear any of that, simply ignore it and go to your room. You have our cell phone numbers, so please just call us if you need to. He finished. I nodded my head, slightly concerned about the exact reasons for these specific rules, but it wasn't out of the ordinary for my parents to occasionally be strict.
Agreeing to their terms, I went to sleep. I was on winter break from school, so I had no reason to rise early. The next morning, I got up while my mum was sending my dad off to work. They always gave each other a peck and said, "I love you," before parting ways. This morning, though, seemed somehow more dire than usual. There was a grave sense of concern in my mother's voice when she said goodbye. The day was rather normal, up until it was time for my dad to come home. He didn't use the keys like usual. He just knocked. I almost didn't think it was him until I remembered his truck lights pulling through the window. I figured I'd play along and open the door with a funny face or a joke to greet him. But when I opened the door, I was only met with a furious father. "Trey, what was the one simple rule I told you to follow?" he said. His voice was stern and angered. "I'm sorry, Dad. I just knew it was you," I replied. "No, you didn't. You just thought it was me. I told you I would let myself in." His voice bellowed at me. My mum walked in and seemingly tried to calm him down. "Henry, he's just confused, and I'm sure he won't make the mistake again. Go easy on him," my mum said softly.
Dinner was quiet that night. Between Dad being furious with me and Mum trying to keep the peace, you could cut the tension with a knife. Mum tried breaking the ice. "Any updates on Mike?" she asked. "We got a call this morning. They found him down by Deer Point Creek," he said, sounding somewhat hopeless. "Well, that's great. I'm sure that his family was relieved," Mum said to him. Dad looked up with tears in his eyes. It took a moment, but both me and Mum realised the gravity of the situation. Mum never asked if he was found alive, and now somehow we knew she didn't need to. "Look at me, both of you," Dad said in a demanding voice. "I don't know if it's a person or a thing, but right now this mountain isn't safe. I can't explain the testimonies and stories that I got surrounding Mike, but I know that whoever did this is smart, he told us. They're posing as other people, pretending to be someone they're not, so that they can get into their homes and lives, he said. Dad looked over at me and saw the concern in my eyes. He excused me from the table and said he loved me before sending me to my room so he and Mum could talk. I tried listening, but I couldn't make out what was being said. Mike, wife, body, 2 weeks, old, hiding, house, 2, missing, is all I could make from their chat.
That night I had trouble sleeping. The jumbled words I had made out played over in my head like a blank record. I tried piecing together the bits of conversation that I had heard. So far, I had Mike's wife said, body 2 weeks old, someone hiding in the house, 2 kids missing. I shuddered at my concoction of a mind. What I made up Mike's wife said that his body was found to be 2 weeks old, even though they found it this morning, and apparently he was only missing for a few days. That begs the question of who was with his family this whole time. My thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the window that made my heart stop. It was too dark to see anything, but the person knocked again. "Trey, can you let me in?" he said. I recognised the voice. It was my father's voice. "Dad, what are you doing outside?" I asked. He took a moment to respond. "I thought I heard something and wanted to check it out, but the door shut behind me. It's cold out here, buddy. Let me in." I was still frozen in fear. But somehow my concerns got worse as a figure appeared in my doorway. It was my father, wearing his typical loungewear pyjamas. He held up a finger in silence to me, signalling me to be quiet. "Trey?" The voice called from outside. My dad erupted so abruptly that I jumped in my bed. "Get away from my house! Stay away from my family!" he yelled. The voice from outside never replied. The only sounds I could hear were that seemed like low growls or something sounded similar to a cat's purr. My dad wrapped his arms around me and told me it was okay, and that he was proud of me for not complying to the person's request.
The next morning, Dad called off work. He decided to stay home with me and Mum, presumably to ensure whatever was at my window last night wouldn't come back. That night, around 9 at night, we all 3 heard a knock at the door. My dad didn't respond and held his hand up to signal all of us to remain silent. "Guys, it's just me," the voice rang out. "I'm headed to the station for an emergency. Did I leave my keys in the house in there?" he replied. My mother had tears swiftly from her eyes, while my heart began to beat faster and faster. "I was hoping you'd show up tonight. I wanted to catch you off guard," my real father called out to the voice. The only noise that followed was a quick yelp, like a dog that had been frightened, and the patter of feet scurrying away. "Henry, what was that?" my mother asked him. My dad held his head down as he thought about how to respond. "I don't know, Amanda, but I know it once in this house," he replied in a hushed tone.
Dad radioed for several of his officer friends to come to the house. When they arrived, they found our mailbox was torn to shreds, our flag torn from the house, and small holes dug into the yard everywhere. Whatever was at the door must have thrown a tantrum after Dad sent it away. We all 3 walked outside and Dad agreed to attempt to follow the being with his friends. He made Mum promise to not open the door like usual. As we both made our way back inside, I went straight into my room to hide under the blanket and pray that I wouldn't hear a knock or a call. My pleasant surprise, I didn't. About an hour later, Dad called to tell us that he was on his way home and they couldn't find anything. I presumed Mum was still in shock, because she didn't reply, she only weakly nodded her head. Dad got home and walked straight through the door. He was scared about something, but also mad too. "Trey, Amanda, who left the door unlocked?" he yelled at us. Mum tried calming him down. "Honey, nobody knocked or tried to come in. I've been watching the door all night," she assured him. Dad looked around frantically. "Henry, I think you're just paranoid about us. We're okay and so are you," she told him. They both walked to their bedroom, as I returned to mine.
The next morning, I woke up and found the house vacant. Mum nor Dad was in their room. I saw the front door open and presumed they were outside. I smelled something though. It was a vile and disgusting smell. It was coming from their bedroom. I walked in and the putrid aroma was coming from within their closet. I opened the closet and realised just how crucial our mistake last night was. I saw the body of my mother, a single slash wound in her neck that caused the blood to spill out everywhere and onto the carpet. I cried as I stood there and fell to my knees. My own mother dead in front of me. As I looked at her body, my mind began to flare, as if I had noticed something without actually noticing it. My mother didn't have a mole under her eye. As a matter of fact, her eyes were uneven, with the left eye almost drooping below her nose. She had no teeth, but upon further inspection, she had no place for them. This woman or thing wasn't my mother at all. As that thought crossed my mind, I looked up to see both of my parents storm into the room with the police.
They apologised to me while escorting me outside. They said they had hoped to catch me before I woke up to explain. But the story I was given was clearly a fabricated story to shield me from what really happened. I was told that a woman was trying to break into our house after Dad had written her a ticket that pushed her over the edge. But I wasn't buying it. I knew this thing was capable of far more than just being a psycho. Psychos don't manipulate voices and faces at will. Whatever this thing was, it was dead. That's all that matters to me. As we walked to our car to allow the investigators to continue, I looked up to my dad, who had his arm around me. But I noticed something. Did he always have black hair?
Oh boy.
Ooh-wee.
That was a very good one, actually.
That was a very, very good one.
It's a very good story.
It was a very good story.
Interesting about these doppelgängers. Not really knowing who actually is who in the end.
I know.
And whether the dad is actually the dad in the end or not. Creepy.
Very, very creepy indeed.
I think, as far as doppelgängers go, if this was to be true, capabilities of the doppelgangers definitely being true in the sense of what we were saying about that there's multiple versions of the same person really in the world. I'd say it's definitely a boo.
Yeah, 100% a boo.
Yeah. Let us know what you all think in the comments below. Whether you're on Spotify or YouTube, just let us know.
And keeping up with stories that are 100% a boo. As we mentioned earlier, we've got a Jordan Peele film for the next section of this episode. So with that, let's head on to our Silver Scream. So, welcome to the Silver Scream for this episode.
Welcome.
As we usually do, of course, we're going to give you guys a little sneak peek as to what the film is. And by that, we mean we're going to give you a quote. If you don't get it, you don't get it. If you get it, well done you. Good movie choice.
Well done.
So, the quote for today goes as follows. They look exactly like us. They think like us. They know where we are. We need to move and keep moving. They won't stop until they kill us. Or we kill them.
So we go, that is a quote from Jordan Peele's second feature film, which actually the title was in that quote, which is Us from 2019.
AKA one of arguably the best films.
Yeah.
Just ever. It's such an amazing film.
It's very
Freaks me
scary.
out every single time.
Yeah, it's very disturbing.
Yeah, it's just very, very unsettling.
But it's all about doppelgangers.
And the other.
Mm-hmm.
And us, believe it or not.
Indeed.
So, the film Us from 2019 was written and directed by a Mr. Jordan Peele, who followed his debut success with this visceral home invasion thriller that explores the terrifying idea that we are our own worst enemies.
Indeed. So, as we always do with our Silver Screen, we're going to give you a little bit of a plot summary, but we will stop before it gives away a very big moment at the end of the film, where we cannot spoil that because it's a really good ending.
It is a really, really good ending.
So, it goes as follows. In 1986, a young girl named Adelaide wanders away from her parents at the Santa Cruz beach boardwalk and enters a Hall of Mirrors attraction where she comes face to face with an identical doppelganger. So decades later, the adult Adelaide returns to the same beach house with her husband Gabe and their 2 children. Her anxiety peaks when, that night, a mysterious family of 4 dressed in red jumpsuits appears in their driveway and silently stands hand in hand. The family, known as the Tethered, breaks into their house. They are exact physical doubles of Adelaide's family, but speak in guttural grunts and move with animalistic violence. Their leader, Adelaide's double called Red, explains in a strange, raspy voice that they are the shadows of those above, forced to mimic their movements in underground tunnels. The family escapes and realise this isn't an isolated incident, where millions of doppelgängers are emerging across the country, murdering their surface counterparts with golden scissors and forming a massive human chain. We are going to stop around there because there is quite a big moment that comes, but that is the general plot, if you like, of Us up until the end. But do go and watch it. I think it's on Netflix at the minute in the UK. I'm not entirely sure, but it's probably somewhere. But if not, just go and find it.
It's definitely on some type of streaming platform somewhere.
Go and get it.
And it's one of those films like, if you don't know, get to know. It's so good.
Yep.
And Jordan Peele is just an amazing creator.
He is. He's an amazing writer and amazing director.
Really is. And it actually solidified his reputation, this film, and that's because he was then deemed the master of quote-unquote social horror, using the film's massive box office and critical success to change how modern audiences engage with the genre. So this also came with the rise of elevated horror, along with films that he created like Get Out. Us helped to cement a new era of horror films that prioritizes dense symbolism, social commentary, and psychological depth over simple jump scares. And it proved the audiences were hungry for horror films that required multiple viewings in order to actually fully decode the message.
Yeah, so it's not like a simple, like, you go in and there's like a bunch of teenagers being slashed away, like classic slasher film.
Which are obviously still amazing in
they've
a league
got
of
their place.
own.
They have got their place, and they are very much just as critical to the horror genre. But
with the modern audience,
Jordan Peele's
comes modern needs.
But with Jordan Peele's perspectives and his, way of doing horror, is very much like a complicated commentary on something that's very subtle. It's not in your face. It's not saying this is what you have to believe, this is what you got to do. But it kind of gives like a very underlying moral message that is encompassed by like the horror, if you like.
Exactly so.
It represents it.
And the film actually set a really high bar for acting in the genre, with Lupita Nyong'o's dual performance as Adelaide and Red became a gold standard for how to use physicality and voice to create two distinct, terrifying personas, sparking intense debate about the historical lack of award recognition for horror actors.
And there's been so many like actors that just don't get recognised.
Completely robbed.
This film's amazing because it's the same actor obviously having to play basically the opposites versions of each other in a very like creepy way.
100%. And even this year at was it the Golden Globes or was it the whatever award ceremony just happened where Timothée Chalamet won, who was obviously a very talented actor, but
for Marty Supreme, wasn't it? Yeah,
but this followed after Michael B. Jordan's dual performance in Sinners.
So I mean, like films like all of Jordan Peele's lot sort of paved the way for things like Sinners, where there was like much more complicated need for like complicated stories, and Michael B. Jordan in Sinners was very much the embodiment of, playing two identical twins, but they got very different personalities, but very similar. So there's that kind of dual performance thing going on, which is very, very hard to do, I presume, for actors, and to do it well too. So it's, I do think Michael B. Jordan was robbed of that a little bit, because
I agree.
Sinners was, and he had to also play like the vampire version of himself, as well,
which
is like different. So it's like three almost interpretations of the same character. But anyway, we digress. But
going back, so non-digressing, we have a little bit about the mirror kind of aesthetic that was obviously portrayed in this film. So the film's visual motifs of the red jumpsuits, the golden scissors, and rabbits actually became instant cultural icons. So these symbols have been analysed as metaphors for a class divide. So the quote-unquote forgotten underclass, or the Tethered, and the American dream's dark reflection.
I remember doing this when I studied film at university. I used I did a critical like analysis because you had to do it on like your own thing of your choice. It was about Jordan Peele and like racial representation in horror films.
Yeah.
And obviously at the time you didn't really have like Sinners and stuff even. It's quite new kind of thing, but it's really interesting. But it represents sort of the dark side of the quote unquote American dream, if you like.
Yeah.
And if you look at the scissors, they're the same, but they kind of cross over.
Mm-hmm.
It's that dual thing. Rabbit's the same.
Yeah. Well, and they have to clash to cause harm.
Yeah. They're part of the same thing, but they are different. Like the rabbit's ears, scissors, mirrors,
all about duality.
It's all duality.
Which also then obviously ties back to the duality of man, which is an even bigger topic.
Yes. Very, very deep.
Yeah. And one of the most kind of cultural, iconic aspects of this film was actually the use of the track I Got 5 on It by Lunas, which was absolutely revolutionary. So by taking a classic hip-hop track and distorting it into the quote-unquote tethered mix, Peele actually influenced a trend of hauntology in film trailers, taking familiar, nostalgic pop songs and turning them into something threatening and uncanny.
Yeah.
So obviously the, like, I got 5 on it. That one.
Yeah.
Such an amazing song. But it's the dum 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 dum.
Yeah. Dum 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 dum. Which we'll be talking about in a moment in the Shivering Soundtracks a little bit more. But
it's so good.
If
you're not going to watch the film, go and please listen to this version of the soundtrack.
It's quite playful, isn't it?
It really is.
But it's like disturbingly playful.
But it's so perfectly like crafted around the characters as well. But we'll get more into that in the soundtrack bit.
There'll be more on that. So just hold on tight.
Yeah.
And of course there's obviously a big twist at the end, but we won't talk about that. But there's like an idea of, not trusting everyone that you might see. That's what we're going to say. And it sort of influenced like a wave of thrillers that the monster was just sort of not an outsider but more like part of ourselves. So without giving too much away, that's kind of the vibe that's going on in us.
And that final pivoting moment is actually what made people want to go back and rewatch it, because they were trying to understand it. They were trying to pick things apart from the beginning so that it made sense in the lead up to it.
Yeah. And there's so many clues to it being that way.
Proper engraves itself into your brain.
It's definitely worth watching multiple times.
You want.
Yeah.
And obviously in an era that is completely dominated by sequels and reboots, Us actually had one of the largest opening weekends for an original horror film, which just proved to studios that original director-driven concepts could still be massive financial successes.
I mean, I'm a giant fan of like the Scream movies, but like the fact that Scream 7 is coming out very soon, it just doesn't. I'm not incredibly excited because it's like the 7th Scream film. Yeah. But like original stuff like this, Sinners, and like reboots if they're done tastefully and differently, like It and Nosferatu, and things like that, where it's like really changed. Yeah. All for that.
I think especially when you just said It as well, where they're taking the entire like world and they're keeping it the same, but they're exploring different parts of it in a really appropriate avenue. Yeah,
and respecting like the
lore
text
that's been created for like years.
Not changing it like Star Wars has happened. Thanks Kathleen Kennedy, but she's gone now. But that's a different topic.
It is.
But Jordan Peele's Us was a production defined by intense physical prep and meticulous attention to detail, to ensure like these tethered characters sort of feel very genuine and are separate to like the human species, if you like. So before filming began, the actors actually went through a movement boot camp with choreographer Madeline Hollander, and they studied the movements of rabbits and cockroaches to develop a jerky, synchronized and predatory way the doppelgängers actually move in the film, which makes sense because they do sort of bounce around and stand. The young boy doppelganger, he sits like a rabbit, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Particularly, I'm pretty sure. Or the two children actually do, I think. But you can see that the jerky movement is very, very weird.
Yeah.
Also, you have Lupita Nyong'o's based red, like the red character's sort of terrifying, raspy voice on a real medical condition called spasmodic dysphonia, which causes involuntary muscle spasms in the larynx, so like your voice box. And she worked with ENT doctors and vocal coaches to create a sound that felt like a voice that hadn't actually been used in 30 years. So almost like you hadn't spoken for that long.
That is dedication.
But it does sound like that. It's like real, like, intense trying to speak.
Yeah.
Because I haven't used my voice for 30 years type thing. So it's...
Especially with the breathing as well, because you can hear all the, like...
yeah.
Like, between all of them. It's so, like...
It's disturbing because a lot of the time there's no music. All you can hear is like every type of tone inside, like a breathing and like.
Yeah.
Yes. And it goes on for a while.
It
Some of the
really
breathing,
does.
it's like, whoa.
Yeah. And actually, to help Lupita prepare for her dual role in this film, Jordan Peele gave her an actual homework list of 10 classic horror films to watch so that they would share a specific cinematic language. The list included Dead Again, The Shining, The Babadook, It Follows, A Tale of Two Sisters, The Birds, Funny Games, Martyrs, Let the Right One In, and The Sixth Sense.
What a great list.
I know.
That's a great list. I mean, you can see influences from pretty much all of those, actually, to be honest. Especially you got like old films like The Birds, and then going all the way to like newer films like The Babadook.
Yeah.
And It Follows. It's kind of you can kind of draw little things, but it's talking about. It's such an interesting way that Jordan Peele does it, in the sense that he's, in order to make it like authentic, but also like so everyone's on the same page to his vision. It gives people like all the resources to like.
Yeah.
If you can't understand it by explaining it, just go and watch these films and you'll get what I'm trying to sort of say.
Exactly. I think also, while we're on the topic of like influences for the film and stuff like that, the whole concept of like nature versus nurture within the duality of the two characters is like perfect, like perfection.
Yeah, chef's kiss.
Yeah, chef's kiss.
Bang on.
It is truly done amazingly, and is like the definition of that saying of like nature or nurture. It's just
it really is
amazing.
Yeah. And of course, The Sixth Sense in there. There's like a big twist in both of these films. Both probably, I mean, The Sixth Sense is probably the most iconic twist in film history. But like Us is very much near there. It's very like a modern day version of like, whoa, didn't expect that type thing. But yeah.
And speaking of things that people didn't expect, in the 1986 boardwalk sequence, the production actually didn't use CGI for the mirrors. They built a practical hall of mirrors and used a double for the young Adelaide. So the actress had to perfectly mimic the child's movements in real time to create the illusion of a reflection.
That's
crazy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, like we always say on this podcast, practical effects are just so amazing. Really amazing. Obviously what we were saying earlier about the symbolism of like the rabbits, there are actually over 250 real rabbits on the set for the underground sequences, and Jordan Peele chose rabbits as an animal particularly because they are quote unquote the most cute and creepy things at the same time. And they represent the idea of a population that breeds uncontrollably underground, mirroring like the Tethered, along with that other representation as well.
They eat them, don't they?
I think there's an element of that, but there's like some rabbits that are like slightly different. They're all like white rabbits, like your classic like test, kind of lab,
like test subjects.
Yeah.
And then just for all of our spiritual girlies out there, the numbers 1111 actually appear constantly throughout the film. So the first one is on a homeless man's cardboard sign, which actually says Jeremiah 1111. Then it's on a digital clock, and even in the pattern of the shadows. The number represents mirror images symbolizing two worlds of the film.
I didn't know that. I mean, it's obviously quite a specific detail to point out, but again, going that far and beyond to sort of point out, to have like little things in there like that is really cool. Yeah.
And as we were touching on earlier with the use of the golden scissors in the film, they were actually used as the primary weapon because they are a singular object which is made of two identical parts that are tethered together. So he also noticed that like using scissors as an everyday mundane object, it becomes like a visceral and terrifying thought when they are used for violence.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, it's very, understandable because, like we said, it's that duality, but they have become one and they are connected somehow, like the blades of a scissor.
Yeah.
It's great.
It is great. And speaking of great things, that heads us over onto Shivering Soundtracks.
So moving on to our Shivering Soundtrack section for the episode today. The soundtrack for us was composed by a Mr. Michael Abels, who previously collaborated with Jordan Peele on his first debut feature film, Get Out. The music is very widely considered a masterpiece of this hauntology that we were talking about earlier. So taking familiar, comforting sounds and distorting them into something very deeply threatening. It's such a great soundtrack.
It really
I love
is.
it. I love it. It's on my playlist. It's creepy, it's playful, and it's strange.
Mm-hmm.
It's very unorthodox.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, that's the one.
Dun, 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 dun.
Bum 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 bum.
It's so simple as well.
Yeah, it's.
Dun, 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 dun.
Bum 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 bum.
I got vibe on it.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah,
It's so
it's great.
like,
It's top tier.
excuse the French, but it's so fucking good. It's
Yes.
so like
It is.
brilliant.
It is top tier.
This is one of the films I genuinely get excited to talk about because
Yeah.
it is just such a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
And like personally, I take so much inspiration from Jordan Peele. I just think he's absolutely incredible at what he does,
He is.
and especially transitioning from comedy into horror is such a difficult like transition to make because
Yeah.
people often watch horror films and think like horror is one of those categories where if it isn't done properly, it's funny.
It's like cringe and funny.
Yeah, and it's such an easy thing to like kind of get swept up in when something is funny. And you've got to be really, really careful when you are making horror films, and he has just absolutely, completely nailed it every single time.
He said that, most of his horror kind of influence comes from comedy in the regard that he said, I think I've said this before, the difference between comedy and horror to him is just the music.
Yeah.
You change the music in a comedy. If you, I saw a video, someone put horror music over Mr. Bean,
Yeah.
and it's quite freaky.
Mm-hmm.
It completely changes it, like the whole vibe. But anyway, the anthem of the Tethered. So there is a track called Anthem, which is the opening one, features a choir of children singing like in a nonsense language, and Michael Abels instructed the singers to almost sound like they were shouting from a distance or protesting, rather than singing a traditional hymn. And it was designed to sound like a battle cry for people who have no voice. So great, like very, very clever, very simple, but very, very clever.
I remember the first time that I heard the anthem, it actually kind of reminded me of Coraline, where it's like that upside down world type of thing, of like everything's been flipped on its head, but it's the same.
It's quite like, I don't think Danny Elfman did that, but I mean, like, it's kind of quite Danny Elfman sounding, like with like Tim Burton movies. I know
Just so
Coraline wasn't
unsettling.
Tim Burton, but
It just gives you that feeling of
It's the same vibe.
awkwardness, like everything looks okay, but you know that nothing is okay.
yeah,
Like
100%.
that subtle like feeling that you get like in your mind.
Yeah,
It's just absolutely fantastic.
it's top tier.
And speaking of top tier, as we just mentioned a second ago, we obviously have the transformation of I Got Five on It. So the film's most famous musical moment is in the Tethered mix, which is the 1995 pop music classic by Lunas. Abels actually stripped away the beat and replaced it with a high-pitched screeching violins as well as a driving rhythmic cello. So that's the
Boom, boom, boom. And then it's like
and then
screeching
the-
yeah.
And this transformation actually mirrors the entire plot. So it's familiar, it's fun, but it's like kind of like a surface memory that's being dragged underground and mutated into something else that is violent. Which, again, when you're mirroring the story in the soundtrack, it conveys it times 10, which is why like music is so important in horror films.
Yeah.
And it's just Like,
it's very important.
Oh.
The presence or absence of music can make a massive difference.
It really, really can. And in this film, it just absolutely is perfectly
Pops off.
done. Pops off.
It did.
It does pop off.
Yeah. So during the final showdown between Adelaide and Red in the tunnels, the score uses like a rhythmic ballet style, whereas like the music was timed perfectly to the actors' movements. So it used heavy percussion and strings that sounded like a ticking clock, emphasised that Red's time had finally come. So it's kind of, it's always like wordplay, but not in like a song like a wordplay. You know, the music kind of represents what the words are being sung, but in this regard it's very much that interplay between like the movements and timing the music to, you know, the actions on the screen, which is different but very interesting indeed.
And then with the film's ending, there's actually the use of the 1970 track Les Fleurs by Minnie Riperton, which is a song that is really beautiful and floral, but in the context of the Hands Across America, like human chain that we briefly mentioned, that you'll know when you watch the film, and the kind of final twist that all comes with it, this song becomes eerily like incredible. And it really highlights the contrast between the perfect image of the world and America and the horror that is required to maintain it.
It's a great final image.
It really, really is.
The film is very like disturbing. It leaves on a great little note.
Yeah.
There. But Abel's actually used instruments that felt hollow or metallic. He incorporated the use of a cymbalom, which is a Hungarian hammered dulcimer, which is like a medieval type instrument, which produces sort of like a twanging, shivering sound. It's like a dong thing. And this is meant to evoke like the feeling of something being plucked or snapped, much like the golden scissors that the Tethered carry. So again, there's like instruments that represent objects that you see.
And with that, the soundtrack also heavily utilises diegetic music, which we did actually mention in the last episode of the podcast. So if you haven't watched that, head over to that episode. Make sure you give it a watch of found footage, because we spoke about the Blair Witch Project and how that actually doesn't have any music, but it is all diegetic. So for those of you who don't know, diegetic means that it is using what is going on currently in the scene.
It belongs to the world of the film,
and it belongs to the world of the film.
Yeah.
So this is music usually that the characters can hear. For example, there is the Beach Boys with Good Vibrations. And during the home invasion of the Tyler family, the song is actually played with a voice-activated speaker. And so the upbeat, sun-drenched California soundtrack completely contrasts with the sharp gore that's happening on screen, actually known as an empathetic music.
That's that's interesting. Again, it's kind of using music that is upbeat and good against something that's horrible, like the classic nursery rhymes that you hear type thing. It's certainly creepy indeed. So that is us in a nutshell. You know, the film, some behind the scenes stuff, the soundtrack. I mean, it's got to sound good to you all, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, go and watch it.
It is one of those films that it is personally just an all-round 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like, the acting, 10 out of 10. Soundtrack, 10 out of 10. Cinematography, 10 out of 10. It all just comes perfectly tied up in a nice little bow for you. That also feels like the bow is made out of like red ants or something. Like, it's so unsettling.
It is. It's very, very
it's
unsettling.
so masterfully done. So yeah, definitely go and watch that.
But talking of unsettling things, that leads us onto a real case of a doppelganger in our ghostly gossip.
For this episode's ghostly gossip, we are going to be talking about the case of, I'm going to have to do an accent because the name is French, Emilie Sagée, from 1845. And basically, this tells the story of a 32-year-old French teacher called Emilie Sagée, who was working at an elite girls' school in what is now present-day Latvia. She was a great teacher, but she had also been fired from 18 previous jobs because of a quote-unquote condition that she couldn't control.
And I wonder what that could be.
Dun dun dun. Or should we say dun 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 dun.
Very good. Yeah. Yes.
So, while Emilie was writing on a chalkboard. A pale, identical version of her appeared right next to her. The doppelganger mimicked her every move, and if Emilie wrote, the double pretended to write, though it held no chalk.
Creepy.
Then in front of the entire dining hall, the double was actually seen standing behind Emilie while she ate, mimicking her motions of chewing and using cutlery even though it had no food.
I'd just go home by this point.
Well, it's still going to be there as well. You can't escape these things.
Christ.
Then that leads us on to the most terrifying detail, which was actually the physical link between them. So one day, while Emilie was visible in the garden picking flowers, her double suddenly appeared in a chair in the classroom in front of 42 students. When a brave student walked up, tried to touch the double, they felt a weird resistance, like a heavy fabric or thick air.
That's weird.
Yeah.
You kind of almost felt that. Just doing that
Yeah.
idea there.
And witnesses noted that whenever the doppelganger appeared, the real Emilie became lethargic and pale, as if her shadow had literally drained the life out of her to manifest itself, exactly like the relationship between Adelaide and Red in the last section that we were just talking about.
Yes, so it's kind of the same. And I read somewhere that this was kind of like a loose inspiration for the characters of Adelaide and Red, this kind of story.
Yeah.
That's kind of creepy. Imagine being
it's really, really creepy.
Being a teacher and you're in a job and you're trying to teach all these kids, but then there's like an alternate version of you that you see. And I'm surprised, after 18 previous job roles, having to, that she was hired again. It's must be terrible. It must have that's a long time ago. It must have been very, very scary.
I know. It's
for this Emilie. So yeah, that is a very interesting little story there. But we will leave the link in the description to more on that story and more things about our Emilie Sagée for you to look at, as well as links to all the other things that we've spoken about in this podcast. So if you're on YouTube, please go into the description, and if you want to look at more detail in your own time, go and check out some more stuff.
So definitely go and check that out when you guys have got the time, because obviously the real life cases are the even more fascinating ones.
Indeed.
But while we are on the subject of things that may be there, may not be there, let's head on to our spooky spotlight. Now, for the spooky spotlight, as we have been doing for the past couple of episodes, we are going to be giving you some of our personal favourites and recommendations for the subject at hand. So, for doppelgangers, there's quite a few good ones that we can talk about today.
Some of these we haven't actually seen, but these are some that have been recommended either to us or people on the internet rave about it. But some of these we actually have seen.
Yeah.
We've got 4 for you today. Some of our favourite selections. Some we haven't seen, some we have. So
the first one we're going to touch on is the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I haven't actually seen this one, but I've heard very, very good things.
Yes, it's remade again, I think in the 70s, I think. But essentially it's I'm pretty sure it's about an alien species that come and they take the form of people, grow like doppelgangers and stuff like that. But they take away the real people.
Yeah.
It's trying to live amongst people in a weird way. But it's a classic. Most people probably would have heard of Invasion of the Body Snatchers to some degree. But there's 2 versions of them. I presume the original is probably the best one. But that is one to tick off, and that is one for us to actually watch at some point as well.
Yep, and if you have seen it, let us know in the comments below what you thought about it. Indeed,
let us know what you think about Invasion of the Body Snatchers and which one we should watch, which version.
Yeah, and let us know your recommendations for any doppelganger films that you might know about.
Indeed.
The next one that we're going to touch on is The Thing, on the subject of alien kind of nestlers that mimic people.
The Thing I have seen, obviously. We've spoken about The Thing quite a few times actually in this podcast. We haven't done it as a silver screen yet, but essentially the same kind of thing. It's in Antarctica, I
Mhm.
believe. I always get mixed up between which one. But there's like an alien species that takes the form of like people and a dog.
Yeah.
The people don't start actually not knowing whether
Mhm.
who
And they start not trusting each other.
they start turning on each other because
Yeah.
they don't know who's the real person. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a classic
But
doppelganger movie,
one
really.
of the giveaways is that it can't mimic metal fillings that people have.
Yes,
And that's how they try and decipher if people are real or not.
yes.
But obviously, if you've got a good dentist, that's not going to do well for you in this film.
No, so hopefully you kind of had like some problems with your teeth before, because you'll probably be a bit better there, better off. But The Thing, definitely recommend go and watch it. I'm not sure where it is to stream at the minute, but if you can find it, it's a classic.
Yeah.
It has to be the original one from 1980s.
The original one is the better one.
They did.
But I also quite like the new one as well.
It wasn't a reboot. It was like a prequel,
Yeah.
but it was still called The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
It was in 2013?
something like that.
I wanna say.
So 2010s at some point, I'm pretty sure.
Somewhere around that point.
But definitely worth watching the original.
Yeah.
100%.
Definitely so. And then we have our third recommendation for today, which is an episode of Doctor Who. So this is the Matt Smith Doctor Who,
It is.
and it is actually the Rebel Flesh episode.
Yes, which Jodie I don't think has seen.
I
this
haven't
one.
seen this one.
She might have done.
It rings
a
a
long time
bell,
ago,
but I think I must have been very young when I watched it,
But
so
the
I can't remember it off the
characters-
top of my head.
Yeah, the villains are called gangers,
Mm-hmm.
unsurprisingly. But they are like it's in like the 22nd century.
Yeah.
But it's like people, they get like invaded and like attacked by their own doppelgangers in
Ooh.
space. I don't know. It's in Earth, I think. I haven't seen it for ages, but they've got like a really watery face and they kind of look the same, but
Yeah.
they're like really
Distorted.
creepy and slimy and uneasy. And that's when Doctor Who was a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Like, especially the Matt Smith ones. I mean, it's great Doctor.
He is the best
I
Doctor.
think he, really like now looking at it from that perspective, I do prefer his
Yeah, yeah.
episodes for sure. But
No doubt about it, hands down, Matt Smith is the best Doctor Who. If you want to fight me, Do
let
it in
us
the
know in the
comments.
comments if you agree with that. But I know a lot of you say David Tennant because he is the same. He's
David
so
Tennant
similar.
is my second favourite.
Yeah, I mean they're both brilliant in
Yeah.
their different ways.
Very
So
much
definitely go and watch that episode if you want something like if you're a Doctor Who fan, and you haven't seen the Rebel Flesh, go and watch that episode. It's really creepy. It's very very good.
So if you're looking for something that is maybe a little bit more contemporary, and maybe a little bit more sinister as well, then that is where we get on to Black Swan,
Indeed.
which is, again, an amazing film. Natalie Portman, like, is one of her best performances, arguably,
Yeah.
except for Star Wars.
Yes.
But yeah, she just absolutely like amazingly talented in that film. For those of you that don't
Yeah.
know, it's about her, and she is a professional ballet dancer, and she starts to see this like distorted kind of grungier version of herself, but it actually ends up affecting her physically. And there's a very big like plot twist in the middle of it. It's got a lot of kind of like adult subjects in it, so make sure you're only watching it if you are over the age of 18. But yeah, it's a very, very, very good film.
It's I think it got quite a few awards.
It did.
I think all she was nominated for stuff, different, an array of different awards for that film. But again, Black Swan, The Thing, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and the Doctor Who episode.
There is also
Recommend it.
the like kind of aside from The Thing, the original doppelganger film called Doppelganger, which actually has a young Drew Barrymore in it, from 1993. I haven't seen that one.
No.
But obviously the older films is probably going to be that more like slashery, Buffy the Vampire Slayer type of
Especially in like the 90s
vibe.
era, it's kind of that kind of more like Buffy vibe.
Yeah.
But like the slasher sort of era is more like the 80s and like the 70s, if you like, so late 70s. But yeah, that was a selection of doppelganger movies slash TV that might take your fancy.
Another Natalie Portman one, just while we're here, quickly
Yeah.
before we finish off.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something that's a bit more sci-fi, Annihilation.
Oh, yes, that's such a great movie.
Annihilation is also a really good one.
That's really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We won't explain what it is because it's just one of those things that you have to sit and watch.
This is a pretty freaky movie.
It is.
And it's like science fiction horror. But
yeah. But it's really,
it's
really
another
very
Natalie
good.
Portman classic. Well, modern classic for sure. Definitely go and watch it. Indeed. But that leads us on to the end of tonight's episode, unfortunately, for you guys.
So, if you have managed to reflect your way through tonight's inversion of an episode, we hope that you enjoyed yourselves, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Bad Boo updates and new episodes, as there's plenty more Frights, Flicks, and folklore to come.
You can also haunt us on socials at Bad Boo Productions, where you can interact and leave suggestions for future episodes or contribute through polls and posts.
And if you're after more creepy content, then you can always head over to our Patreon. If you'd like to hear or even see more of us, then head over there for exclusive Boo Crew videos, stories, and live streams.
So that's all from us for this peculiar episode today. We've been your haunted hosts, Sam and Jodie, unravelling the dark so you don't have to. And until next time, keep your lights on, your doors locked, your mirrors covered, and remember, the shadows are never empty.